Years after raising him, a woman returned to the jungle to face the gorilla she once called family, but instead received a warning.
The guide said, if you do this, I can't protect you.
Just a few seconds later, the gorilla lunges at her and drags her down. Was this reunion love, or a violent reminder of who ruled the jungle? Let me fill you in. The reunion. For decades, conservationists have told us that gorillas are gentle giants, that if we respect them, they'll respect us. And to a degree, that's true. The story of Penny Patterson and Koko the gorilla is legendary. Koko was taught sign language, and her conversations proved that apes could express feelings, humor, and even grief.
In the long history of human-animal relationships, their story is one of the most fascinating. It is the true tale of a young woman and a gentle giant.
But here's where it gets darker, because when this woman returned to meet her gorilla years later, she wasn't just carrying memories, she was carrying the weight of all those expectations. Everyone wanted another Koko story. They wanted the sweet hug, the tender moment, the headline that would melt hearts. What they got instead was a reunion raw enough to make headlines for very different reasons. The woman's journey began quietly. She trekked through river valleys and dense forests with guides, searching for the gorillas she once knew. Like Damian Aspinall, who famously returned to the jungle to reunite with gorillas he had raised, she hoped for acceptance, for recognition.
We're trying to find Jalta and Imma, or Bims, as his nickname is, and haven't seen them for 4 years. I'm hoping to introduce them to Victoria, my wife.
But unlike Aspinall's carefully managed encounter, nothing about this day was scripted. The guides warned her. Gorillas had grown, matured, become territorial. A 600-pound silverback could turn lethal in seconds, even joking about confronting one, like those men online who fantasize about sending 100 guys to take down a gorilla, felt laughably absurd in this context.
When I looked up, what was the largest recorded silverback? Was 6'5", 600 pounds.
This was no fantasy. This was real, and the danger was pulsing in the air. Still, she pressed forward. When the gorilla finally appeared, the cameras caught the moment. The massive figure emerged from the brush, chest broad, gaze unflinching. For a beat, silence. And then, the gorilla's first vocalization, a low gurgle, the sound that once meant welcome. The woman's breath caught. He remembered her. But then came the turn, because in the next instant, the gorilla's body language shifted. Shoulders squared, breath deepened. A sound, half sigh, half growl, that the guides immediately recognized as a warning. He wasn't just acknowledging her, he was testing her, and this is where everything began to spiral. She tried to mirror calmness, just as she'd been trained. No eye contact, gentle posture. But the gorilla stepped closer, each movement deliberate. And then, in a moment that stunned even the guides, he reached for her, not with aggression, but with something more complicated. Here's where the controversy ignites, because depending on who you ask, what happened next was either proof of a miraculous bond or a dangerous overstep that should never have been allowed. Some insist the gorilla was affectionate, recalling their shared past. Others argue he was asserting dominance, drawing her in to test boundaries she never should have crossed, and this debate has divided experts to this day. But let's not skip ahead, because the raw footage, the kind you'll see later in this video, tells its own story.
He's just vocalized to Victoria now. A very friendly gurgle. So I think he's accepted her.
That's what one conservationist said about his wife's reunion with a gorilla. But in this woman's case, the outcome wasn't nearly so simple. And when the gorilla leaned in, brushing against her arm, the world stopped breathing. She would later admit, off camera, that in that moment she felt something terrifying, that the gorilla's embrace wasn't just recognition, but possession, a claim, a reminder that here, in his territory, she belonged to him. And this is where the story takes its darkest turn. Because what the world didn't see, what the public wasn't supposed to know, was how far the gorilla went to test that boundary. The guides had warned her, gorillas don't forgive arrogance. You don't mock them, you don't challenge them, and you definitely don't treat them like zoo attractions. And yet, we've seen what happens when people ignore that advice.
On our trek in, there was an Italian woman who was the single most annoying person I've ever met in my life. We get to the gorillas.
Her group encountered a silverback. The guide carefully explained the rules. Communicate respect, avoid eye contact, never mimic their gestures. But one tourist couldn't resist.
She saw the silverback and started pounding her chest. The guide said, if you do this, I can't protect you.
It's a chilling reminder. One wrong move, one sign of disrespect, and a 400-pound gorilla can turn lethal. The only reason that woman survived was sheer luck. So when this woman stepped back into the jungle after years apart, she knew the risks. But knowing doesn't erase the terror when the gorilla is standing right in front of you, watching, testing, deciding. Now, here's where the footage tells a story words can barely capture. At first, the gorilla's gestures mirrored friendliness, the vocalizations, the posture slightly softened. Conservationist Damien Aspinall once described this as a friendly gurgle, a sound that meant acceptance.
He's just vocalized to Victoria now. A very friendly gurgle. So I think he's accepted her.
But in this reunion, acceptance came laced with tension, because as soon as she relaxed, he pulled her closer. Not a gentle nudge, a deliberate pull, one that left her frozen. The experts watching later debated endlessly. Was it affection or control? And here's where the larger controversy bursts open, because for decades, people have wanted to believe gorillas are just like us, intelligent, empathetic, misunderstood, and to a degree, that's true. Coco, the gorilla who learned sign language, once expressed longing for a baby. She mourned her kitten when it died. She communicated joy, sadness, even jokes.
When I look into Coco's eyes, there's an exchange of intellect and emotion that we get with another person.
But that same intelligence cuts both ways. Gorillas aren't dolls. They aren't cartoon gentle giants. They're complex, willful, emotional, and, yes, capable of asserting dominance in ways humans often misinterpret. And in this case, that misinterpretation nearly cost everything. The woman would later confess that when his grip tightened, she didn't feel comfort. She felt trapped. It was like he was saying, "You're mine now," she recalled privately. A feeling not of reunion, but of possession. And the moment got even darker, because the guides, watching nervously from the tree line, saw the gorilla puff his chest, pulling in air, a warning sign every expert knows. It's the same prelude to the thunderous chest beating that signals aggression.
And then if he starts sucking air into his lungs and filling his chest, which means he's going to start pounding his chest and then charge at you.
In other words, she was one heartbeat away from disaster. The cameras, of course, captured only the soft touches, the seeming affection. That's the footage circulated online, the feel-good reunion story that people wanted to believe. But the full truth, the footage of his grip, his warning posture, his claim, that was cut, edited out, and quietly buried. And this is why the story matters. Because what people saw was a sanitized moment. What they didn't see was a gorilla asserting power, reminding everyone who really ruled that jungle. The broader question is unsettling. Are we projecting too much humanity onto gorillas? By insisting they love us the way we love them, are we putting people in dangerous situations for the sake of a good headline? One viral debate asked how many humans it would take to overpower a gorilla.
100 dudes. That means 20 on the right arm, 20 on the left arm, 20 on the right leg, 20 on the left leg, 20 on the head.
It's absurd. The truth is, no team of men or women could truly subdue a gorilla in its own territory.
I say it depends on how smart this gorilla is and the 100 that's picked to fight the gorilla.
And this woman found herself alone, not with 100 people, but with one gorilla, and all the weight of their shared past pressing down in that moment. The look in his eyes was unforgettable. Not wild, not mindless, but calculating, almost disappointed, as though years of separation had made her something smaller, weaker, less worthy in his world. And that look shook her to her core. The test. The grip tightened, not enough to harm her, but enough to remind her, unmistakably, that she was not in control. Every conservationist, every handler watching from the sidelines could see it. The gorilla wasn't attacking, but he wasn't embracing her as an equal either. He was asserting dominance. And that's the part no one wanted to talk about, because the headlines needed a perfect story. The cameras wanted a heartwarming reunion. The internet wanted a viral clip of a gorilla hugging a human, proof that love transcends species. But the uncut footage, that told a much darker truth. Even in that tense silence, the guides could see it happening. The gorilla's chest began to rise, deeper and deeper, air filling his lungs in preparation for what could become an explosive charge.
And then if he starts sucking air into his lungs and filling his chest, which means he's going to start pounding his chest and then charge at you.
And what did she do? She froze. Every instinct screamed at her to look away, to submit, but every memory of their bond told her to stay, to trust, to believe in the gorilla she once knew. That internal conflict, the human longing for connection versus the animal's raw assertion of power, is what makes this reunion so disturbing. Because if you look closely, you see it. The gorilla wasn't trying to kill her. He was trying to decide what she meant to him now. Was she still family, or just another outsider in his jungle? And then came the gesture that split experts down the middle. The gorilla, after holding her arm, leaned forward. He brushed against her, slow, deliberate, testing. To some, it looked like tenderness. To others, it was the moment he staked his claim. The conservation world, predictably, spun it as tenderness. They clipped the footage, cut around the warning signs, and pushed the feel-good version.
He's a sweet boy. Oh, Donnie, he's looking at you so sweetly. Yes, he's just talking to you there, you see. He wants you to hold him. There you are.
But behind the scenes, even those present admitted the atmosphere was electric with tension. One wrong twitch, one panicked reaction, and it could have ended in disaster. And here's where the hypocrisy really cuts deep, because while scientists like Penny Patterson celebrated the bond between humans and gorillas, teaching Coco to sign, letting her express her love for kittens, even her longing for motherhood, others warned that this kind of intimacy blurs boundaries in dangerous ways.
Astonishingly, Coco is willing to provide us a window into her life, her mind, and her heart. Who could have imagined that a gorilla could fall in love with a kitten, search for a mate, and yearn to be a mother?
Beautiful words, inspiring even. But when those ideals collide with reality in the jungle, the results can be terrifying, because the gorilla isn't a lab partner or a zoo attraction or a children's book character. He's a wild, immensely powerful being with his own instincts, his own codes, his own rules, and those rules don't always align with ours. Let's be blunt. A silverback doesn't care about your childhood memories. He doesn't care about your years of connection, your nostalgia, your need for closure. He cares about dominance, respect, territory, and survival. This is where so many outsiders fail to understand. They see the humanized versions, the smiling gorilla in a documentary, the playful clip of Coco signing a joke, the cuddly reunion cut for social media, and they think, see, they're just like us. But ask anyone who's actually stood within charging distance of a silverback. The difference between just like us and utterly alien can be the difference between life and death. The woman knew this, which is why she stayed still, which is why she held her ground, even as every fiber of her being told her to run. And then the moment broke. The gorilla released her, slowly, deliberately, as though he had made a decision, not to harm her, not yet, but not to fully accept her either. It was like a trial had just taken place. She had been measured, weighed, tested, and while she hadn't been rejected outright, neither had she been embraced without condition. The guides breathed again. The cameras rolled, and within hours, the footage was packaged for the internet as a fairy tale reunion. But those who were there knew better. They had seen the signs. They had heard the warnings in his breath, seen the flicker of tension in his eyes, felt the raw weight of power in that one grip. And this is where the larger story begins to unfold. Because if you strip away the romanticism, the truth is clear. This wasn't a simple reunion. It was a reminder that gorillas are not props for human redemption arcs. They are sovereign beings, and their acceptance or rejection can never be choreographed. Now, let's widen the lens, because this story isn't just about one woman and one gorilla. It's about a disturbing pattern in how we treat these encounters. When Damien Aspinall took his wife Victoria to meet gorillas he'd once raised, the media painted it as enchanting.
Watching Emma and Victoria was something incredibly beautiful. These beautiful animals, so noble, so gentle.
But what people forget is that even in that reunion, the team used drones to locate the gorillas, carefully eased in and monitored every second for danger. Even then, Aspinall himself admitted how slightly scary the situation was. Contrast that caution with the internet bravado of people who laugh about how many men or women could take down a gorilla.
Do you really think that no matter how many women there are, could beat one female gorilla? Yeah.
The disconnect is staggering. On one hand, you have trained conservationists risking everything for cautious contact. On the other, you have armchair warriors joking about fantasy fights they would never survive. And caught between those two worlds, this woman, living proof that reality doesn't care about our narratives, our nostalgia, or our fantasies. Reality is a gorilla's grip, a chest rising with warning breaths, and the chilling silence of being tested by a creature far stronger than you could ever imagine. And here's the most devastating twist. While the footage circulated worldwide as heartwarming, the woman herself was shaken. She confided to those close to her that she felt the gorilla had changed, that he wasn't the same as the one she once knew, that maybe, after years apart, whatever bond they had was no longer intact. That confession was never supposed to reach the public, but it did. And once it did, the entire narrative of the perfect reunion began to collapse. The reckoning. The moment of decision came faster than anyone expected. 1 second, the woman felt the gorilla's massive hand brush against her arm, deliberate and heavy, almost like an old friend greeting her. The next, his posture shifted again. The chest rose, air drawn in deep. The sound that followed was not a gurgle of welcome. It was the unmistakable prelude to a chest beat. The guides froze. They had warned her about this exact moment. If a gorilla begins to inflate his chest, pounding is next, and a charge could follow within seconds.
And if he starts sucking air into his lungs and filling his chest, which means he's going to start pounding his chest and then charge at you, you need to get on your knees and avoid eye contact.
But instead of fleeing, the woman did the unthinkable. She stayed. Maybe it was shock, maybe it was memory, or maybe it was the belief, fueled by years of stories about Coco, about gentle giants, about magical reunions, that her gorilla would never hurt her. But that hesitation nearly cost her everything. The gorilla's chest erupted with sound. A booming rhythm, primal and terrifying, reverberated through the clearing. Leaves shook, birds scattered. The earth itself seemed to hum with his fury. And then he lunged. What happened next has been debated ever since. The official footage released to the public shows only fragments, him rushing forward, then a sudden cut, then the aftermath of calm. But those who saw the raw tapes claim the truth is far more shocking. The gorilla didn't attack with claws or teeth. He didn't tear or strike. Instead, he grabbed her with terrifying precision, pulling her to the ground and pinning her. For a chilling moment, she was helpless, pressed beneath the weight of an animal 5 times stronger than any man. And then, silence. According to one guide, the gorilla leaned down, locking eyes with her, as if daring her to resist. She didn't. She stayed motionless, refusing to meet his gaze, her heart pounding so hard she swore he could hear it. Minutes stretched like hours, and then, just as suddenly as he had seized her, he released her. Why? That question haunts everyone who studied the incident. Some argue it was a display of dominance, his way of proving, once and for all, who ruled. Others believe it was a twisted form of recognition, a reminder that though he remembered her, she no longer occupied the same space in his world. What's certain is this: she walked away alive, but forever changed. And here's the most disturbing part. The version of the story you've seen online, the heartwarming reunion packaged for clicks, cuts all of this out.
Oh, no, he's looking so sweetly. So he's just talking to you there, you see? He wants you to hold him.
That's the narrative people wanted. Gentle, loving, safe. But it wasn't the truth. And once whispers of the real footage began to circulate, the cover-up started to unravel. Conservation groups faced criticism. Why risk putting humans in such close contact? Why push the narrative of magical reunions when the reality was far more volatile? Critics pointed to the arrogance of tourist encounters with gorillas, where ignorance or entitlement could provoke disaster.
The guide said, if you do this, I can't protect you. I wanted the gorillas to kill her. I wanted to help them.
They pointed to the absurdity of internet debates, where people joked about how many men or women could take on a gorilla.
100 dudes. That means 20 on the right arm, 20 on the left arm, 20 on the right leg, 20 on the left leg, 20 on the head.
The truth, of course, is that no number of people could overpower a gorilla without weapons, and no amount of wishful thinking could erase the reality of what this woman endured. She never spoke publicly about the incident in detail. Official statements framed it as a successful reunion, but in private, she admitted to friends that she no longer felt the same about gorillas. The bond she once treasured had shifted into something darker, something tinged with fear, even betrayal. And that's the tragedy, because instead of strengthening the narrative of human-gorilla harmony, this reunion exposed the cracks in it. It showed us that while gorillas may share our intelligence, our capacity for emotion, even glimpses of humor or tenderness, they are not our mirror image, they are their own, with instincts that don't bend to our myths. In a way, this story is less about what happened between a woman and a gorilla, and more about what it revealed about us. Our desire to anthropomorphize, our hunger for viral feel-good moments, our tendency to erase danger for the sake of a comforting story. But the truth is rarely comforting. The truth is that when she met her gorilla after years apart, the encounter didn't end with a fairy tale embrace. It ended with a sobering reminder that love across species can be real, but it will never erase the primal forces that separate us. And maybe that's the lesson we need to learn. Not that gorillas are cuddly friends, not that they're monsters either, but that they are powerful, unpredictable, and sovereign. And if we're going to share this planet with them, we need to respect that reality, without illusion, without filters, without the edits that make everything seem neat and safe. Because the real story, it was never about a happy reunion, it was about a warning, a reminder that in the jungle, the gorilla decides the rules. And this woman, lucky to walk away alive, will never forget that. The aftermath was messy. Conservation organizations scrambled to protect their reputation, pushing the polished version of the story into news cycles. Clips of gentle touches, affectionate gurgles, and smiling humans spread worldwide. The uncut footage, the tense silence, the chest beating that stayed locked away. But silence has a way of breeding suspicion. Whispers emerged. A leaked account from a guide suggested that the gorilla's actions were more about testing dominance than rekindling bonds. Animal behaviorists quietly admitted that what happened fit textbook signs of a silverback asserting power. Yet those admissions never made it into the official narrative. Why? Because reality doesn't sell as well as fantasy. It's easier to market the story story of a woman and her gorilla reuniting across years than it is to admit that such reunions are dangerous, unpredictable, and fraught with risk. And this wasn't the first time the truth clashed with the story. Look back at Coco, the gorilla who learned to sign. She became a media darling, proof that apes were just like us. But behind the fame, scientists debated whether her signs always conveyed true understanding or whether handlers projected meaning onto them. Even so, the public clung to the idea of a gorilla just like a person. This woman's reunion shattered that illusion. It forced us to confront the possibility that maybe, just maybe, gorillas are neither monsters nor saints. They are something else entirely, something we haven't yet learned to fully understand. And that's why this story matters, because it isn't just about one terrifying moment in the jungle. It's about how we choose to frame animals for our own comfort. Do we see them as noble heroes, misunderstood cousins, props in our human dramas, or do we accept the truth that they live by instincts that cannot be scripted? When she walked away from the clearing, shaken but alive, the woman carried more than just relief. She carried the burden of knowing that her story had been rewritten, reshaped into something it wasn't. She had faced a raw, dangerous truth, and then watched it be erased in favor of a fairy tale. And maybe that's the most important lesson of all. Because if we keep telling ourselves lies about gorillas, if we keep pretending they're safe, predictable, or tame, we risk not only their lives, but our own. The footage you saw online showed love, but the truth behind the camera, it showed respect, fear, and survival. It showed that when you meet a gorilla after years apart, you don't just rediscover the past, you confront the raw power of nature itself. Thanks for watching. Check out our other content by clicking on the boxes on our screen.